and welcome back to the PhD Journey Unplugged. I am Dr. Marilyn Ward, and this is my colleague, Dr. Sarah Gordon. And today we are going to share with you overcoming obstacles. And let me just tell you, there's a lot, and everybody's obstacles can be different, but it's how we overcome them that's going to help us reach the end of this journey. So, Dr. Gordon, what uh, was some of your major obstacles, do you think, along this path?
Well, before I get started, I wanted to say welcome home, Marilyn. We
Oh,
missed
yes, thank you.
we missed the farm
I
and
do
the
too, but I wore my
roosters.
duck shirt today. Just
So that was fun. And I really enjoyed our um episode last week on finding balance.
yes, that
And
was great.
like you say every week, we try to build every week on this theme that's always focused on health and wellness. And so today, when we talk about overcoming obstacles, and we're going to share some personal experiences and some information to help us all kind of grow through understanding obstacles in our lives.
Yes.
Really, what's at the heart of all these conversations is just how do we have the best health and quality of life that we can, especially as we age. And we like to use our experiences from being PhD students, but we also like to always reinforce to our listeners that these are issues that, and I've gotten feedback already. I've gotten texts and phone calls and emails like these are things that people are experiencing even outside of a PhD journey, in the
Oh,
corporate
yes.
world or just working for yourself. So I think as we kind of settle into this conversation today, we all have obstacles in our lives.
Oh,
And
yes.
it's kind of like, what do we do? I guess the conversation today is like, what do you do with it? How do you get through it in a healthy way? And just talk about some of our experiences. You know, I would say in 5 years of getting your doctorate degree, there was always an obstacle in the way.
Yes.
You know?
It wouldn't be normal life if there weren't obstacles,
No.
right? I
Yes.
can't believe anybody just smoothly sails through life without some kind of challenge, obstacle. And like I said, each obstacle, it can be something different for everybody. Like what my obstacles were might not be what yours were, or anybody else that's listening. It is your own journey, and there are your own obstacles, and then how we deal with it is also, we have ownership of that. So,
Yeah, and I don't think any of us should have an expectation that life is just going to be, always talk about the path.
you're right.
Never a straight path. And who said life is just going to be, super easy? I mean, you wouldn't even learn if we didn't have these obstacles in our ways. And there's a book that I read it a while ago. It's called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. And a lot of quotes in the book are based on the philosopher Marcus Aurelius.
Okay.
I love this quote. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way.
Yeah, good.
So,
That's so true.
yeah, think about that a little bit that like we have these setbacks in our life and we think that, that perhaps we can't overcome them or it's just so challenging and whatever it may be, wherever you are in your life. And then you get through it and you look back on it, you're like, wow, that's kind of maybe what propelled me to something else, to some
Yeah,
next
it
step in my life.
it totally makes us stronger. I feel like it's just like that song, if it doesn't, what if it doesn't hurt us, it makes us stronger.
Mhm.
So, and I think that's so true because each one, if you use it as a learning experience, and we grow from our mistakes, right? Now I tell my children, learn from my mistakes, so it makes yours easier. But the kids make mistakes, or even as adults, but that's how we grow and what makes us stronger and we learn more. So I don't think like having, obstacles are not always a bad thing.
No.
It also helps build that resilience,
Hmm.
so we need to have you got to have a little push here and there, you know, then we know we're becoming better and we're growing.
But it's hard when you're faced with some obstacle, and we'll share some examples with our listeners.
Yeah,
But it's hard not to have like a knee-jerk reaction to it and feel like
yeah,
frustrated with it, maybe angry about it,
yeah,
and have some type of emotional reaction to it. And I think that's where the growth mindset comes in as we
right,
start, this conversation, excuse me, we talk about growth mindset is how do you learn not to react to when that obstacle comes, when that door closes, when you feel pushed up against a wall, when things are
right.
happening around you that you really don't have any control over, because you really only have control over how you react to something. How
Mm,
do you face that with a growth mindset? Be
yeah.
peaceful. And it's very hard. Humans, we are wired to have this emotional reaction.
Right. Oh, yeah. And we dwell. I think sometimes we
Right.
dwell on it
Excuse
too
me.
long and then it, just festers and, but how to look at it with a positive point of view and
Right.
say, okay, well, this is what I should have done. It's okay. You have to reflect on it for, I think, a moment and be like, all right, this is what's happening, but now how can I make it better? And how can I get over that? Because we always say your obstacles become stepping stones. But what does that really mean?
Right.
What does that really mean for us? And well, and that's kind of what we'll share today, and that it's just another part of life and that it's going to happen, and how we react, it's different, like I say, for everybody. You just have to do something. You can't just sit there because you can't, what the definition of insanity, you can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results.
Hmm.
So obviously you're going to have to just change a few things. And I think it starts with your mindset.
Yes.
Changing your mindset is like, and that can be hard, even in that, just saying that statement or phrase, that's hard, right?
Right. Yes.
So there's all these little things, but I promise you, they all kind of come together, they weave in together to get to where we need to be.
Yeah, and I agree. And if you think about an obstacle, when you are faced with some type of obstacle in your life, there's some tension in that, right?
Right.
And we can control how we use that tension. We can
Yes.
use it in a healthy way, and learn how to adapt to whatever it is. Um, and I'll give you a great example is last summer, when I was thinking about today's episode and trying to prepare for a little bit, I was thinking, okay, what stands out in my mind as like a major obstacle? Well, last summer when I was running my study, I was conducting on the second phase of my study. It was a qualitative analysis. I was running interviews with people, participants. I was on the last one, and we had an area-wide power outage.
Oh my.
So I had no internet service, and I had no way to contact the person I was supposed to be interviewing, and it was a major obstacle, and I was really struggling with it. And you know what I did? I drove a distance to another state and I found
Oh
internet.
my.
I found internet service and I was able to email her and reschedule and all that kind of stuff.
Oh
But
wow.
it's kind of like when you're faced with this, we have the control of how to respond to it.
Yeah.
And we can adapt or we can throw our hands up and be like, it's too hard. I can't figure this out, blah, blah, blah. But I think in that moment when you adapt is where you grow.
Yeah.
And looking back, just real quick, looking back, it was amazing. She was the type of person that she was like, she literally helped me cross the finish line. She was my
Oh.
last interview, and she's like, I'm that type of person that loves to help somebody cross the finish line. So it was just an amazing, positive experience
It
from
is very
from
innovative.
the obstacle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
innovative thinking, like,
Yeah.
and the quick reaction for you to do that, because and
Hmm.
I've seen in other instances where you're like, oh, sorry, that's it. And I'm
Right.
like, no, that can't be it. That can't be the thing. Well, I wouldn't say that this was like a recent experience with a PhD, but just thinking about obstacles in general. So I was Air Force, and we had in basic training an obstacle course. So multiple, and if anybody's ever ran a race, like the Warrior Dash or the Spartan race,
Mhm.
you have all these obstacles that you have to, go across. And I just remember thinking like, how is this even going to happen? Like I'm looking across at the bars you had to, when you're a kid to the jungle gym, the bars, and I'm like, there's no way. And again, we have it. I always say, get your mind right and your body will follow. It's been my mantra forever.
I love that. Get
And
your mind right and your
your
body
body
will
will
follow.
follow.
I
A
love
lot of
that.
the times we give up in our minds before we ever take one footstep into
Such
action.
a
So I remember
true.
thinking like, how am I going to get across this? Let me
Mhm.
tell you, adrenaline was pumping and I went across. I mean, I sailed across it. I don't even know how I did until I got done. But every obstacle, we just tackled it. And I'm like, so now I always think back when I do see obstacles and I'm like, it's just another confidence course. And they call it a confidence course for a reason, it's going to build you or break you. And so I think that has always stuck with me in the back of my head. Like when I am come across any type of challenge or obstacle, I look at it like, all right, well, it's how my mind, like, I'm gonna do it. Like you just
Mhm.
have to do it. And I say, if you fail, fail forward. I might have got halfway across or whatever.
Well, I love that so much. And I think it's also too important to remember that it's a temporary situation.
Yes.
It's not a permanent thing. I
No.
think we tend to have these, experiences and it feels like the whole world is just, how am I going to get through it? And you feel so stuck. And I just think it's really important to remember it's not permanent.
No.
It's not temporary. I mean, it is temporary, excuse me. And you have the ability to decide how to maneuver it. And I think
Right.
that's when you start to feel like you have more control over things in your life. And we talked about it last week a little bit in terms of finding balance and controlling your day, not letting your day control you. And I think it's the same thing with obstacles. You just don't know. When you start a PhD program, you don't know. You could have a assignment due and you don't have internet. Like the experience I had
Yeah.
with my internet down. You could come across a teacher that really isn't that encouraging and just everything feels like an obstacle in that class. I remember reading in our textbooks, I don't know if you remember,
Gosh.
the student that had a fire and lost all her work.
Oh, no, I don't
I don't know if you
remember.
remember reading that. And so, I mean, we all have things in our life. One tip I will jump in and share so I don't forget it is back up your work
Oh
multiple
gosh, yes.
places.
Yes, I now maybe I do remember that story, or there was a similar one
Similar,
about how they lost all their work.
right?
And right off the bat, I'm like running to the store. Like I have an external hard drive, but I've got to go through all these folders. So I specifically bought a thumb drive just for this work because I never wanted to lose it. Because one time something happened with one of my papers. It
Right.
got got deleted somehow.
Oh, we have a little technical difficulty there. So I'm going to just keep going until Marilyn comes back on. And I'm going to go back to this book that I was talking about, The Obstacle is the Way with Ryan Holiday.
You go into that
Oh,
instant
there
panic
she
mode.
is. She's back. You froze a little bit. So
Oh
I was,
no.
it,
Oh
well,
no.
like we
Hopefully,
say every week, we're going to get better at this and our technology is going to
yes.
get better. But you froze a bit. So I went back to the book. But go ahead.
Oh,
That's
okay.
what you're saying.
Oh, so I lost part of my work once when I think it was for my comp exam. And luckily for the cloud, I was able to, find it on the cloud. But I remember going into that instant panic mode and it was like, oh, and I really was almost at the conclusion, like, I have to rewrite this, and it was
Right.
several, I don't know, gosh, how many pages? 20 some pages. But, it was like, well, I can either throw up my hands and quit, but I'm not a quitter. So I wasn't, I was like, start typing. In the meantime, I'm like, keep searching, keep searching. And luckily I found it. But so that just brings me to, I think, a major obstacle, which happened for me in the beginning and throughout was the obstacle of fear, right? We fear is, most of us we're thinking of obstacles in the real sense. What is that? As a tangible item,
Hmm.
but fear is one of those that will catch you. It's because it's fear of the unknown.
Fear
We're
is paralyzing.
oh, paralyzing, debilitating.
Yes.
So I think part of it was, do I even want to start this journey this late in my life? So fear almost kept me from doing it. Fear of, am I good enough, almost kept me from continuing. And fear of, am I doing this right? When you're getting ready to present, you're like, is this right? Like I had a fear. I was doubting myself, like, is it right? And then it was, am I good enough? And so I think fear was probably one of my major obstacles that I had to keep talking, you
Hmm.
know, coaching myself, if you will, to get through it.
Well, and the interesting thing about fear is it when you work through it like an obstacle, it can be so enlightening.
Yes.
It's so interesting how we don't realize these things until we get through them.
Right.
That and
And
you
it's a
look
good
back and you're
story to
like,
tell.
why did I
Yes.
wait so long? What was I so scared about? And you know, you have to be resilient and you have to be flexible. I think about my proposal defense, which was like a Zoom-based presentation to our dissertation committee. And
Yeah.
I had prepared and I was all excited. And here comes the obstacle. For some reason, the camera didn't work. So I presented, they didn't get
Oh,
to see
no.
me, and all they could really go on was my voice. And you just adapt. You just get through it. They had
Well,
some type of technical difficulty that day with their equipment. So,
that's funny because mine was the opposite. I could, or no, yeah, I couldn't see them. Like I was proposing to a blank screen. I was
so
like,
you
I was
just,
proposing to myself, and I'm like, well, this is interesting.
so what do
They
you
were
do?
all, yeah, they were all there in the beginning, and they're like, just keep going, Marilyn, just keep talking.
Just
I'm like,
keep going.
okay, I'm talking to myself. I mean, I think that might be also why they changed to another platform when we did our final defense,
Probably.
because I think they had a lot of technical. See, so even the other professionals have difficulty, technical difficulty. It's not just us.
Well, when you froze, I was getting ready to share something, and I'll just go back to that now. And I'm glad you're
Okay.
back, by the way.
Yes, thanks. I couldn't tell on my end.
So I like this from this book, The Obstacle is the Way, that obstacles and the examples we're just giving, like from school, and they're opportunities to practice different virtues. So like patience, courage, humility, resourcefulness, reason, and creativity. So you, in that moment, you like for me running to the nearby state, it just took some creative thinking. I don't necessarily know where that came from. Maybe it's like a flight or fight.
Divine
I don't
intervention.
know. You're right. I'm glad that I was able to get to that point and not just throw my hands up in frustration. But maybe that's the lesson that we can teach today a little bit when we talk about overcoming obstacles is look at them, don't look at them in a negative way that it's a roadblock for you. Look at them as opportunities to grow and to kind of rise above it because they're gonna happen. That's just the way life is.
Oh
Life
yes.
throws us curveballs all the time.
Yes. And
It's just
when
the way
one
it is.
is, yeah, and when one is done, when you fixed one, just know that another one's coming right behind it. Because
So,
it's not, yeah, it's not perfect. And how you handle it, there's no right or wrong. The
no.
only way I would say there was a right or wrong is if you just completely give up, right?
Yeah.
That's the only way. And you don't want to give up because we're telling you that to keep that big picture,
Yes.
the mountain is going to be behind you at one point, and the feeling that you have of like um gosh, excitement, gratitude, accomplishment, like all of that wipes away everything. It's like, remember when we
Yes.
talked about childbirth? When the baby's born, all the pain goes away. And so just know that that feeling at the end, it is so worth it.
It really
So,
is.
yeah.
I was just texting you last night. I was like, Marilyn, this is the first summer in like 5 summers. I actually did something fun last night. I was like,
Yes.
and when you're in the midst of going through a program or anything, challenging in your life, just remember you're gonna get through it. It's temporary, and look at us. We did get through it, and that's why we really wanted to launch this podcast to share our experiences. And like we talked about last week, and I don't know if our listeners, if you had a chance to listen to episode 4, it was all about finding balance. And life really is a balance. It's a balance between opportunities and challenges and trials and triumphs. It's just the way life works. And if we can allow ourselves to just be patient with ourselves when these
Patient.
things happen, you're going to be okay. I
And
think
I
that's the
think
message.
use this time or any time that comes across is a great time for reflection. That's why it's great to have your goal boards or your goal sheets from years past because you can reflect back. So you're saying now like, "Oh my gosh, this is so tough. How am I ever going to get through it?" Well, think back of all the other things that you've already overcome.
Yeah.
Think back at the first 5K you've ever done. Oh, I did it. Then it's the half marathon, then it's the full, then it's a try. So, and I'm just doing that in racing terms because that's what I do. But if you just think back of all the other things that you thought you weren't going to get through, and here you are 5, 10, 15 years later, and you did it. So this is just another one of those things that you're going to work through just like anything else. It might be a different scenario, but the steps to get there are probably going to be somewhat similar. So, and
Right.
that's because you have become stronger and you've grown and you've used those things to continue to go forward. So, whatever tasks or tools you've used in the past will probably help you, now in
Mhm.
this journey.
I agree with that. And I think it's important for us to remember, like, things don't always go as we think or we're planning. I mean, I always make this joke, like, we make plans and God laughs.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not
Yes.
saying don't be a planner, but I think that, you know, obstacles are a natural part of life. And as we talk about health and wellness, it's really the goal is how do we respond to it?
Right.
Do
Oh,
we?
and that's perfect. I don't mean to interrupt, but it
No, no,
just
that's
made me
okay.
think of something like, like God's, timing or whatever. Think of it the scenarios with a car and you're driving down the road and there was you got stuck by this red light and you're like, dang it, why did I get stuck by this red light? Well, then a minute down the road, you see this bad accident. Well, had you made that light, that could have been you in that accident. So sometimes when God intervenes and does stuff, and we're so mad, like, why did this happen? He does have a bigger plan for us. And sometimes we have to sit back and let go and, what is
Be
it? Jesus take the
patient.
wheel and just know that everything that's happening is for the right timing. Might not be our timing, but it is the timing that we're supposed to have.
And
So
that's a hard lesson for us
whew,
humans. We
hard.
want things in our timing. I mean, we joke about like we came out of the program and we're like, "Hello, world." We taled about another episode. Like, here we are.
Yeah.
It's like,
Now
we're
what?
not ready for you guys yet. So what do
Yeah.
we do? Well, let's just do a podcast and start talking
Yeah.
about our experiences and have some fun with it. And hopefully we're helping other people. I am getting some good feedback,
Yes.
and it seems to be relevant to just life, not necessarily just getting a doctorate.
Yeah.
Um, and I want you said something, and I thought it reminded me of what I said when I gave that commencement speech. I gave some different lessons, and I thought about that today. I was like, oh, I think I kind of talked about the obstacles, not knowing that we were going to be doing a podcast now on this. But here's what I said. It's so interesting to me, right? Don't be afraid to pivot and change your path. Be open to new ideas and guidance from others. Perhaps that new path was always the right path for you.
Yes. Yes.
And that's
Right. That's
right. And
good.
that's what you're kind of saying is, we don't necessarily know, and we need to keep our minds open to
Right.
change and just be peaceful and patient with it sometimes instead of trying to fight it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like I remember years ago I did martial arts and we all lined up, went to a camp, and we all lined up along the ocean and we were punching the waves as hard as we could. It's like we didn't get anywhere, punching against that. You just have to let the water kind of flow past you. And I think that's when you get obstacles or challenges or bad news or
Right.
life, you just have to
I
sometimes let it flow.
Yes, that's so true. And I listened to another female, she did her commencement speech. I don't even remember what university it was for, but it was again talking about timing. And she had just kind of reflected back on her past, like jobs that she applied for. Well, I applied at this job and she got denied, and the next job got denied, and the next job. And she's like, but that's not the one, that wasn't the one. And finally she just kept saying, oh, and I think she was going to be also Miss America or something.
Wow.
So if this resonates with anybody, or if anybody knows what I'm talking about, and she kept getting denied. Her coach kept saying, "You need to do it. You need to do it again." And she did it year after year and kept saying no and no and no. And now here she is. She is, or was, or Miss America, Miss Universe. I'm not sure which one, but then she was talking about how it's the same with jobs. Like we keep saying, because even now I've applied at so many universities, and I'm like, why are they lined up at my door wanting to hire me? Well, first of all, they don't know me. I'm just freshly out of the water. And so, but I'm like, what's happening? Like and I don't know, maybe you didn't have that thought, but I thought, oh, I'm going to graduate and all these people are going to want me on their team. They don't even know who I am.
Well, I kind of like this philosophy of like this is I look at this as like the pause. Okay?
Yes.
Because I'm not so sure if I came out of the program that I would know exactly where I would want to be right away. And I feel like I don't know that I would want to be pressured to make that decision right away.
Yeah.
And I feel like this, I know it's hard to wait. And maybe that's the obstacle
Oh,
for us right now is we are being challenged to be patient and wait. But maybe in that time, we are learning new things and we are discerning really what type of research we really want to continue,
yeah.
doing and where, and to find our home for the next 10 to 15 years academically. And so I think that's the lesson there is that, we want things in our time, right?
Yes.
But when we are
And what we
challenged,
think we should do.
yes. And when you said in a couple episodes about hitting every red light and how just, like, all right, God, like, I know you're testing me with my patience. Like, I love that because, and I said that in the beginning and from the book about the different virtues that can come from obstacles. I mean, patience is a huge virtue. And, and people, I mean, I'm not trying to sugarcoat this or make this minimize obstacles. People are dealing with things.
Right.
I mean, there are serious things that people are dealing with while they're getting their doctorate, while they're working, while they're living life. Like I'm sensitive to that and I understand that. What we're trying to say, and we're not trying to minimize that.
No.
What we're trying to say is like for your own health and well-being, because that's really what our podcast is, focusing on, is that you have some control on how to handle it so you can, you know, be healthy in that process
Yeah. And continue to move forward.
and continue
You
to move
don't want it,
forward.
to become stagnant and just sit there and dwell on it and let it fester into something massive where, it might take a mental toll. We want to teach you to just work through the problems. And that's why I say you can always reach out. The school has wonderful people there for you for a support team, whether it's your other I say classmates, cohorts, your advisors, they have now, I think when you're on campus, there's, help that you can reach out there, friends just, I always say reach out to those that are going to be encouraging and not discouraging. Like, yeah, you should just quit the program. You should just quit. Why are you even doing it? No, you don't want, those are not your friends. But it's okay to seek help. It's okay to ask. Like,
Hmm.
I think we are so afraid of that. We're so afraid of letting somebody else know our fears or know that we're struggling. And that's not good either. It's, I think, just mental health in general. People are so it used to be a thing of, nobody talked about it, but we have to. It's a
Well,
serious thing. And some of your obstacles, whatever they may be, or maybe that is one of your obstacles, we have to work through it. You have to work through it, overcome it.
I agree with that. And one of the first times I kind of heard this concept of allowing yourself to be a little vulnerable, I think it was Brene Brown. She has a
Mm,
TED talk on it about
okay.
allowing yourself just to be vulnerable. So asking for help, you're allowing yourself to be a little bit vulnerable and saying like, I need help. And that's
Right.
okay. It's really an okay place to be. Um,
Yeah.
the other thought I wanted to add about obstacles, and I want to see what you think about this. Sometimes the obstacles, like I think you were saying this, are really there for a reason because it's not really the direction you're supposed to be going in. And so if you give yourself the time to be patient with something, you can kind of discern that and figure it out. Is this obstacle like there because I'm being challenged to adapt and be flexible and resilient and figure out how to work around it and over it and under it and all the different ways through it? Or is this really like a sign like pivot, pivot, my friend.
Right. Like this
Try
is
something that flows.
right. That is a good question or thought. Like,
Right? You ever felt that way? Like it's
yes.
pushing a wheelbarrow up a hill? Like, well, maybe I'm supposed to go in a different direction where it
Yeah,
just
maybe I'm not.
flows a little bit more peacefully.
Right. And the totally. And then you can find yourself on this new path where you're like, wow, this was amazing.
Right.
So again, I think that's part of that being adaptable, being able to see like, okay, well, this is really tough and this is and you maybe make a change. I think I made a massive, massive career change when I was done being I was, left the military, separated from the military, and I went into Mary Kay, and I was a sales director, doing great, driving my second free car, and then all of a sudden it just became challenging, like more challenging than before. They kind of changed their criteria, and I moved and had to build all new clientele and a new team, and but that's at the same time I fell in love with fitness. And I'm like, ooh, I really like this. I really like this fitness. But I'm like, oh, I can, I was being pulled in two directions. And Mary Kay herself, I never got to meet her, but I did several of her books. And she said, you can't chase two rabbits, meaning like pick one or the other for your, what are you going to do? And I really treated my business. It was not a hobby, it was a business. Like I had full inventory, like did the whole shebang. But I loved fitness. And because I had lost weight and I just knew that that was going to be my thing. Everybody freaked out. I freaked myself out when I said I was quitting, because I'd made, great money in it. But when it started to become such a challenge and I didn't love it anymore, I didn't love how, I was helping people, but not in the same way with fitness. So I had to make that change. And it was a huge challenge, obstacle, fork in the road in life. But when I did, it's been nothing but blessings. Like
It's amazing.
I, yeah, like I made that change
And
and it
that's,
was scary.
I think it goes back to you mentioned it earlier about fear.
Yeah.
And,
Oh,
you
fear of
know,
the unknown for that one for sure.
yes. And when you push through it, it's a little bit enlightening. Um, as you're talking, I'm just thinking about somebody I had a conversation with last week who's listened to our podcast and was just sharing some things that are going on as he's trying to launch his career as a producer in
Oh,
TV world, and there are lots of obstacles everywhere. But I also think you need to also recognize where you're at in the journey and allow yourself to be a little. I use the term like a sponge. Like, don't just fight it so hard. Allow yourself to be open to learn from people who maybe know a little bit more. So, like when you start our PhD, when we start our PhD program, you come in with these preset ways of thinking how you should be
yeah.
doing things, and then the obstacles start because they start pushing back and trying to teach
Yeah.
you because they know more than you. And so I
Right.
think that's all comes back to what we talked about last week about finding balance.
Right.
In whatever the moment is where you find yourself, just find a good balance and that's feels healthy, peaceful,
Right.
reduces stress, anxiety, try to move yourself in a healthier direction.
Yeah, what do they say? This too shall pass,
Yes.
right? Like
Yes.
it will pass. It's just knowing that I guess some good tips to walk away from would be to embrace the change, embrace the change. Look at the obstacle, like think to yourself, like, what are you going to learn from it? What did I learn from this obstacle? Because whatever you learned, you're going to be able to now, next time that obstacle comes at you, you're going to know how to handle it better. So always think of, all right, well, here, this was happening. How can I learn from it? So I think that's a good tip. And then just help it to remember to build, this is going to build that resilience. You have to be able to become resilient during these obstacles, overcoming them so you can keep going forward and don't get
Yeah.
stuck at a standstill.
And it's hard to remember to do all those things.
Oh yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
could fail four times at it and be successful one time and be successful four times.
Right.
I mean, don't beat yourself up. You know,
No, that's not going to do any good
life is
either.
and we say this all the time, life is about growth and, and that it's just part of the journey. Um, I read this quote. I don't know exactly where I found it, but I really loved it. You ready for this one? Okay.
Let's hear it.
One day you will tell your story of how you overcame what you went through, and it will be someone else's survival guide.
Yes. Oh, I think about that when I listen to or talk to people with drug habits when they overcome it, because that's massive. And I think with drugs, alcohol, whatever. And because I at my church they used to, they'd come in and they'd tell a story, and to listen to, and they are, when you listen to their story, you can just see and you just know that they're helping so many other people. Their journey and their story
Yeah,
is like a survival guide for those that are still struggling. I think that's amazing.
I know.
Oh,
And I love this one too. Like, some of the kindest people out there with the kindest hearts have been through the hardest things that you can imagine, the most
absolutely.
obstacles. And so, but what they're able to do, and I want this for all our listeners, is to just understand that you can get through whatever you're going through today. And we
Yeah.
promise you that it's temporary and
Yeah.
and to ask for help. And whether you're struggling with getting a paper done or figuring out what kind of research you're going to run, or you have health issues going on in your life, or your loved one has health issues, like, don't be scared to share with people and ask for help. So I think that's important. Don't
Definitely.
avoid the ops. Don't necessarily run from
Right.
life.
No. I think of the basic training. If I would have got up to that obstacle and turned around, and said, I'm doing it.
I
Go the
know.
other way. There's
I
no
think
way. You have to do it. You have to go through it. Now you might stumble and fall, and I fell in the water, I'm sure more than many, many times. But you will have people that will encourage you. I had other airmen that were there that were like, come on, and they're pulling you and pushing you. And so just know when you do stumble, whether you think they're there or not, if you let them know, they're going to help you. They're going because everybody wants you to succeed. So I think,
and if they don't, they're not your people anyway.
right, right. Even in a race, look at how many times you see people on these races and somebody starts to stumble and fall. Strangers, they don't even know you, but they know
Right.
you share a commonality. And so they pick up that person and they help them cross that finish line. And this is no different. Like your cohorts, your teammates, they're going to help you make it across because
Definitely.
we want everybody to succeed.
We did that for each other, and it was such a
Yes.
blessing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Yes. We're still doing it.
we're
We
still
both have
doing it.
rereps
Um,
and we're like calling each other back and forth like, hey, how do I do this? So
yeah, we're looking into learning how to have better sound quality on our podcasts and better
yeah.
platforms to do these on. So you'll watch us grow. We're excited to
Yes.
grow. I love how you say every week you kind of come up with the theme of our talk. And
Ooh,
I think it's important to always kind of bring this one that you always say, celebrate the small wins. So even with obstacles, overcoming obstacles, whatever it is, you don't have to look at things so big. Just break them down into
Right.
small parts and you will get through it.
Yes. And
Look at us.
remember to
We
be
did it. We got through
grateful.
it.
Yes, have gratitude. I think we kind of forget that part, to say thank you for putting that obstacle in my way so I could learn from it.
That is so great. I'm so glad you just said that. You're
Yeah,
right. If we could turn it from frustration to what you just said,
yes,
thank you for the obstacle. I'm grateful.
yeah,
It helped me learn, or that is
yeah.
great, Marilyn.
Yeah, but thank you for the opportunity to grow.
Yeah,
So, and
awesome.
that's in any aspect of life. I just think we all can, practice a little more gratitude. And I'm speaking to myself. It's
Yeah,
just something that, you put that positive energy out, you're going to get that positive energy back. And I think that starts with gratitude for
I
sure.
love that.
Yeah.
Well, this was fun. We might have,
Yeah.
I don't know that we stayed exactly to how we planned it, but that was a fun conversation, and I hope that our listeners enjoyed it today too, and that it
Yes.
helps you if whatever you're going through, when you listen to this. Next week, we're going to talk about what thriving means, and I think it's funny because one of our books in our program was surviving the dissertation. And I'm kind of like coming out of this with a new mindset, like let's thrive
Right.
beyond surviving.
Yes.
So we're going to
Yeah,
talk
we don't
about
want to just
that.
survive, we want to thrive.
We want to thrive. And I just think it's funny that they gave us a book about like,
Yeah.
surviving it. It's like sounds so like,
Yeah.
well, how about let's let's approach it like let's enjoy it and enjoy the
Yes.
journey. So
Absolutely.
anything else you want to share before
No,
we
I'm just excited to talk about this next week. So, because it is fun. So you're going to get to hear a little bit of the fun and
Yeah.
some of the highlights of the journey. And I think it'll be nice. It'll be a nice transition.
Yeah, and I think just one little tip as we wrap up for those who are working on their doctorates, find something you love to do for your research. It'll make
Oh,
the journey
yes.
so much more fun. I loved my research. It was such a great
That's a
positive
good
experience.
point.
Find
Yeah.
something you really want to study that you're passionate about, and it'll just be such a more positive experience. We both had that positive
Yep.
experience with our
I
research.
think, and to continue to grow, because
Yeah.
whatever it is that you do this, you'll want to continue to build on it later, or at least I know we both have decided, we both want to build. So yeah, I think thinking long term, what it is that you want to continue to research. And that's a good point.
All right, Marilyn, you always come up with the theme of the call.
I think I lay, I
No
really
pressure,
like,
no pressure there.
yeah, no pressure. We definitely talked about the obstacles and not, but you said a statement about being humble through the process. I don't know, you used
I'm
the
not
word, I
sure.
can't think of it now. But so that, like, when you're going through it, it's okay to ask for help.
Oh,
So
vulnerable.
vulnerable, that's the word, vulnerable, and then just be, grateful. Remember that everything that you're going through it for a reason. You're going through it for a purpose. So be thankful for it. I know it might not seem like it right now, but if we're thankful for it, it won't seem such a task.
Love it. Excellent. All right. Well, episode 5 and onward to 6. And this has been fun. Enjoy it.
I enjoy
All
it.
right.
Please share your feedback, comments. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. All
Thank
right.
you. Bye.
Bye.